Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I seem to have gotten very into hitting that slash key, or I've got to change what my start recording key is. I keep looking over to starting the recording and seeing that it's already been recording. But anyhow, this is Indiepocalypse Radio, your show that's halfway between, I would say, 70%, 80% of the way towards your kind of like post-con hanging out, and then the whatever remaining percentage is like an interview show. I'm Andrew, the your host and the curator, editor, etc., etc., etc. Of the monthly indie game anthology Indiepocalypse, with which this show shares its name. We are here with a couple of game developers from featured in that aforementioned bundle, or not bundle, I hate calling it anthology. Starting with from issue 46 with God, I Want to Be Deep. It's Mini Wolf. Mini Wolf, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well, I would say. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just need to. Your link is someone else's, and I have to change it very quickly. It is very important to me.
Mm.
I
Mm.
hit one extra Control Z, and just the how do I say, the visual language of the letters, like their structure looks very similar, so it slipped by me. But
Mhm.
anyhow, I have a question for you right off the top. A very very important question to me, which
Okay.
is the standard Indiepocalypse question that I ask of all Indiepocalypse contributors, such that I can help to continue this project for
Mhm.
eternity. How did you find Indiepocalypse?
Well, I found Indiepocalypse when I was invited to you added my game to your to playlist.
Yes.
Um, and up at the top it says like, hey, you should try submitting this to Indiepocalypse. And I was like, yeah, why not? I'll give it a shot.
Yes. It's a good record because those come from my a little bit of my own searching around, and a lot of bit of people's own 5-star ratings and like recommendations by adding that to their own collections. So they're kind of like soft curated for me in a way. Uh,
Yeah.
well, perfect. And now, second question: how do you know when your game is added to a list? Like, you get a notification of it? Like, that's the.
Um, I um I love to keep track of that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Like I'll check in the activity
Oh, okay.
or the analytics is what it is.
Yes.
So I'll go through and see what lists people have added mine to. A lot of them are private, so I don't know.
Right. Right.
But I like to see number go up.
Yes, I mean, hey, getting added to like private lists is. I mean, I also have a lot of private lists
Hmm.
that are secret lists.
So when
It's
it's the
it's
public ones, I get excited.
yes, right, because that is Indie Apocalypse is kind of like, here's 10 good games, and then the to play list is there's a lot more than 10 games I could feature in a month. There are a lot of good games to play, uh,
There
and yeah,
are.
yeah, there's like basically there you could argue to say that there are too many games for people to play. Uh,
Hmm.
and that there's like a nigh infinite amount of them, and that, I mean, really, the best course of action is just to play the things you want to play, because you'll never reach cultural consensus.
Hmm.
And speaking of things people want to play, if people are unfamiliar with God, I Want to Be Deep, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as a playable poem.
Yeah.
How it how I originally wrote it was as a poem. I love to use Bitsy. It's
Yes.
a little game engine. I don't think I've made anything that's not Bitsy. I have two books.
And
Um,
you didn't. I presume you didn't write those in Bitsy. That would be a really inefficient way to do that.
no. Oh God, there'd be so many rooms.
Right.
Oof.
Just endless, endless, endless conversation with a single person.
Yeah.
Uh,
And only so much text can fit.
right, right.
Anyway, so that's what yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Actually, yeah.
no, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I have two books that I've written and published of my poetry. They're available on Itch.io and on Amazon. So there's my shameless plug.
Yes, no. I mean,
Um,
this thing is here for the show. I mean, everything I do is basically shameless plugging for stuff that I like by people that I like.
yeah. And
Uh,
so in my second book, To Wander Past the Hollow Night, God, I Want to Be Deep is one of the poems featured in it.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. That is
So
like
I've
Bitsy in a lot of ways is the closest you get to like a pen and paper equivalent in games. You know, as a thing you can just like
hmm
pick up and start working.
yeah. I've actually got you can fork Bitsy, and
Yeah.
so I made a fork of mine, fork of my own a couple of years ago that game was made exclusively on my phone.
Okay. Yeah, because I know it was very much designed to be like, Adam had made it as something, a engine he could use on his phone on the way to work, and yours is very like,
Yeah, he's on the bus.
yes, yeah, right. And I mean, so do you come from more of like, would you say a writing background of like,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, like you games came after writing.
They forgot what it's called. One of my and for some reason Itch.io it will not open on my computer.
That's fine. I've
Um,
I've got it open.
but
So I've got things, anything you might need to look for, like um,
it's one of my favorite Bitsy game, or like it's the first Bitsy game that I ever played.
okay,
Um, by Cecile
okay, yes,
something.
Richard, presumably,
Yeah, Endless Scroll.
yes, okay,
Um, and it was so, I don't know, so simple and yet so complex. It really inspired me. I'm like, I want to make a game that makes me, I want to make something that makes me feel the way that this makes me feel.
right, yeah, and that is like the thing that's easy to like forget about games and all their flash is that sometimes like you don't need a lot really at all in art to evoke something from somebody.
Yeah.
You know, from I mean, poetry, of course, is like the perfect example of
hmm
poems. I mean, besides the named epic poems, are generally pretty short.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I feel like Bitsy is sort of a poem version of of a game engine. It's they can be long and epic, but a lot of the I don't know. For me, it just it a lot of my earlier games, I was trying to be complex and make them grand.
yeah,
But lately, just got an idea and I want to get it out. And Bitsy really helps me do that.
yeah, because it's kind of like the benefit of you're not like. I mean, it lets you go straight to working on something. You don't have to worry about
hmm
the like is my character like do I have to you don't have to worry about making that a character walks left and right and that text pops up, and that text prints
hmm
even.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were writing and you had to like, break down your own ink,
Oof. Yeah.
that
Make my own paper.
yes.
Ugh.
Right. That's the equivalent of what a lot of like game design from I mean engines do certain amount of work for you, but
hmm
there's a comfort in some that do like more of that work for you, that you can just like dedicate yourself to exactly what you want to do. and
Yeah.
I mean it also really opens the possibility of like who can make games. It's
Yeah.
like that is, and also like something that can be used, things engines that can be used on phones. uh
hmm
where I've
That's
encountered.
how I've shared my games
Right, right. And just games that can be
is
played on
I'll pull it up on
phones.
my phone.
Yeah. And someone can just like, oh yeah, let's pull up your game on my phone. I've
Hmm.
encountered people who just, and this is at like gaming conventions, and like they don't have computers.
Yeah.
Like it's not wholly uncommon. So like, and
Hmm.
you can't make a game like on a console, really.
Yeah, not really.
Maybe in like some closed ecosystem you can make something, but
Hmm. Yeah, it doesn't really have the tools to make it.
yeah, right. And then, but then having stuff that is portable to the web or downloadable as just like an HTML file, which will basically run on any computer.
Hmm.
It's handy. Imagine if writing a book you had to worry about like you have too low spec a book or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, my
Man.
my e-reader is too old. They can't run this book.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, have to like a plain text version.
Right, right. Here's my plainer text version, like my extremely plain text version of my book.
Yeah, oh man.
None of those bells and whistles of italics or fonts or complicated page breaks. Those little triple.
Oh man, mine is full of full of
Right.
those. I
Yes.
do like doing blackout poetry.
Right. Oh.
So
Right. That's too much black ink
yeah,
for
my
an uncomplicated e-reader.
hmm
And now, what is the
I'm
experience
having
with
to
like?
refresh.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Um, what is the experience publishing like? Because Itch is primarily a game platform. What is your experience with publishing like, non-games like books on Itch?
Um, it's my so my first book was a fundraiser for vet fees for my kitty cat.
Yes.
So I sold it mainly to friends and family. I posted about it on Facebook. I was a little bit nervous, like connecting my digital persona, I get like my
Yes.
game
Right. Right.
me with my like Facebook me, but it was for my cat. I had to.
Right. Yes. No.
Have to, but I chose to.
I have.
I don't know.
I've.
If I ever want to be horny on Maine, I've got that
Yes.
in the back of my head.
Right. Exactly. That's why I am strict separation of game and life. Uh, like
Yeah.
there is. I keep like my personal life and this whole. And that's also the weird thing that I have like that feels different that I'm sure is more common like when you don't work in games where it's like people in
Hmm.
games are kind of like my work friends. uh,
Yeah.
where it's like I think maybe if you're more entwined with it, it's like those are your work friends and also your friends, and I just have like random offline people that I hang out with,
Hmm.
which it also makes it kind of easier to uh, separate, the two.
Yeah. I don't know. My coworkers didn't know anything about me.
No, that's very
Hardly. I didn't tell them.
that is very similar. Like my work life, my regular job life is separate from both of those
Yeah.
as well. From my work life and my like some people are aware of it. I put it on my resume.
Hmm.
Uh, but it is not like a serious thing.
Yeah. I don't
Like
know. You put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort into it that I see.
right, yes. Oh, yes,
I don't know.
that
It's serious to me.
right. Right. Maybe I mean serious in like who
Oh, like
knows.
business attire.
Yes, yes. It's like right, right. It's not a. I can't be like, oh, look at my small business I made.
Hmm.
These are my profits. Well,
Yeah,
uh,
it's a
yes. It's a
passion project.
right. The unfortunate thing of most independent art increasingly becomes, oh, it's a passion project. Um,
Yeah.
because people you know, do not pay for what's the word? Hobbyist stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a weird space to occupy, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Like especially
Yeah, it feels weird. Like, yeah.
no, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I don't know, trying to like, I can't imagine me personally selling it, especially because I make them so small. Like,
Right, right.
I've listened to a couple of the other episodes and like, oh yeah, this game's like 3 hours. I'm like, oh my God, I could like,
Right.
and he's gonna have me on here? Like,
No.
I wrote like, I don't know, 20 lines.
Yeah, but they're 20 very good
But
lines, you know. I think people like that's it's funny because I was talking in the pre-chat with somebody. I was talking about somebody who had a very similar feeling about like when I contacted them about their work, and it's like I think part of it is like the whole like content, grind set kind of really
mm-hmm.
poisons artists' brains, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
of being like, oh, I didn't, because you don't have like
Yeah,
endlessly,
whatever you didn't do is
right,
what qualifies as a game.
right, and you're like, oh, you didn't, because your game isn't like a perfectly endless replayable roguelike or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
although Bitsy does loop every
I've been on
time
a
you finish,
it does.
so it's not a
You could
whole
read the lines in a different order. I could,
right,
maybe there is that.
yeah, but like,
Several different experiences that you could have.
yes.
Way to market.
Right. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how do you market it? You know,
Mm-hmm.
the curse of like believing that. Oh yeah, no, these things have to be like marketable and
Mm-hmm.
like these playable, like comfortable, like sellable experiences or something. There was there's a post that I think about. It's too mean to use
Mm-hmm.
as like to use the term in earnest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but someone was referring to like hobbyist games and like basically free itch games as practice games. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
and I know the context they meant. They were talking from like very industry minded context, and they were talking about like
Mm-hmm.
people making their little like Space Invader clone or whatever to practice to work for like
Yeah,
a
it makes
regular.
me
Sorry, go ahead.
makes me think of so I've been so there's this 9 hour like video essay on YouTube about Mario Maker troll levels.
Okay.
And I've watched it multiple times by now. I first saw it when I came out of the hospital with appendicitis and I had nothing else to do. Like
Yes.
had appendectomy, had nothing else to do. Um, but it's stuck in my brain like this whole culture that came up and like the amount the amount of effort that these creators put into a Mario game, but like it becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me think similar. Like, oh, those are just practice games. Like for when you make your real game. Like, no, it's a level on its own.
Right. Yeah.
It's in conversation with other levels of its type. It's fascinating. I want more people to watch 9 hour Mario Maker video essay.
Yes. that is. That is me watching just like long, uh, like I encountered a channel recently that's like someone's quest to chronologically play every console RPG, and that's like
Oh wow, yeah.
that, and like that is perfect. That is a thing that I want in my brain of like, kind of like
Hmm.
I crave that sort of um non-curated kind of thing, if that makes sense. Like people focus
Yeah,
like playing like I'm fascinated
yeah,
by those kind of like chronological sort of projects because they force people to like play everything, and veer from the canon a lot.
yeah.
Whereas
Um,
like, I complain about I mention this on like the show all the time. The gaming canon feels very like stale and narrow, uh,
Hmm.
in terms of like what people are
Yeah, be
like.
able to explore like what things were before we made all the rules about it.
Right, right. And like what are like the that's why I think I joked about in the pre-show and you couldn't hear us, but that someone's publishing big rigs again on Steam, and
Oh yeah.
that is like, are you familiar with the game Big Rigs Over the Road Racing?
I did a quick Google search in the
Yes,
pre-show. So
famously
yes and
terrible,
no.
famously terrible game. Like broken. There's like this eternity old GameSpot video of it that I think really kind of like rose it to prominence. I wonder if you can actually still even watch. Uh, but
I wonder.
of just like how broken the game is. Like you pick up infinite speed going backwards, and you can just drive up sheer wall like mountain cliffs and just drive off into the infinite void or whatever.
Oh yeah, the parallel universes
Of course,
for
exactly.
Panacoic's Mario. Yet again, Mario.
Right, right,
My
right.
algorithm has got me.
Those that right
Anyway.
now people start thinking about parallel worlds in half A presses, and but there
Hmm.
but there is like that intense depth, I think, that's like fascinating to games, and you can just be like, and I think that's kind of like emerging to something more cohesive in like the next 5-10 years maybe,
Yeah.
where you'll get like
Yeah, I hope so.
more and more people, more and more, if you want to get like into a very particular like niche, that niche is like super
Hmm.
available to you.
It makes me think of those podcasts of like the bad movie
Yes.
podcast. There's one in particular, the Flophouse.
Okay, yes.
Um, I got some comfort episodes that I
Yeah.
listened to where they dive in. Inspired me to watch Fat Man this
Okay.
past December, which is a movie about a little Ben Shapiro-esque kid who gets coal for Christmas, and so he hires an assassin to kill Santa.
Okay.
It's so dumb, but it was I hardly ever, subject myself to that sort of thing. And so it was really fun to just sort of turn my brain out and know that, like,
Yeah,
I
that
don't know,
is
like this was made to be goofy.
right. Right. No, a friend was telling me about the exact same show because there's a friend I often will watch movies with,
Hmm.
and he's also the person where I subject to bad movies,
Yeah.
because it's mostly like a lot of those I couldn't watch like by myself.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
but when you have a
Yeah. I
person,
had
yeah,
had my friend with me. We watched it together.
yes, yes. When you like, 'cause some of
It's
the
fun to, yeah.
yeah, because a lot of times those get like really bad at some points, and it's very handy to
Hmm.
have like a friend there to like to comfort you through the hard parts.
To look over and be like, they're really doing this.
Yes, right, and like something because a lot of times those movies get like very boring in stretches. Uh,
Hmm.
but there was it basically him mentioning that really made me want to watch Megalopolis really bad.
Oh.
Because I think I was mentioning it to see if it was available, and then he mentioned that on that show, like the guest had said, like, because they were saying, like, oh, it's not that bad, and the guest was like, no, your brains have just been poisoned by watching so many bad movies that you don't have perspective anymore. And I think that's like an interesting, like, when you get down into like niches, like you kind of like you
Hmm.
it's very fun to like lose perspective with the mainstream.
Yeah, there's this XKCD comic I have actually printed out and have a copy
uh,
of in my notebook.
yes.
Um of what is it? I'm pulling it up right now. What is it? If you locked people in a box for a year with 500 still frames of Joe Biden eating a sandwich, by the end they'd be adamant that some were great and some terrible.
Right. And I
Connoisseur. Our brains have just one scale, and we resize our experiences to fit. Like that changed my brain chemistry.
yes, right. It is like like once you dive into like, and that's also like the beauty of like the infinite of art is that you like one, like if someone's just coming from like very mainstream like Call of Duty or whatever, you know, whatever
Hmm.
your Fortnite, your what's the guy, what's the thing, what's the TikTok thing where the guy runs uh Subway something.
I don't know. Subway Surfer?
Yes. If your perspective is just like kind of like mindless sort of things, and you come to like Bitsy, for example, they might all
Oh
very
yeah.
they might all just seem the same. But you know,
Yeah, I remember the, the also one of the very first Bitsy games that I played. I didn't realize that you had to like walk up and interact with people
right,
to get them to talk. And so I wandered around most of the game and didn't understand what was going on because it was like it was kind of a scary situation. I was like, oh no, I have to stay away from that guy, or else he's gonna attack me. Did not know that that is not something possible in Bitsy.
right. And that is, and like, but then as you spend more time with it, you know,
Hmm.
you undoubtedly realize, oh, you can like you would be start to be able to like recognize different Bitsy hacks, you know, uh,
Yeah.
and be like, oh yeah, this uses this hack. This uses, oh, this one has music. This one has sound, you know,
Hmm.
and like recognize all these different like minutia to them.
Yeah. It's a cool engine. I hope more people make Bitsies.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much to that, and like just like uncovering these like niches, and I feel like it'll just like it's like solidified this way. It's just like a different way people make games, you know.
Yeah.
But speaking
Yeah.
of different games and
Yes.
favorites and all this stuff, if you've listened before and you hear me say "speaking of" abruptly, once you feel like we've been talking for about 20 minutes or so or more, you may know what's coming, and I want to be prepared. So I have to ask you, what's your favorite type of rock?
My favorite type of rock. I knew this question was coming, and I still did not prepare.
That's
Favorite type of rock.
the curse of the Indiepocalypse guest. No matter the amount of preparation, it's still unprepared.
Yeah. Somebody last week talked about they had a pet rock.
Yes.
I had before I went and got my did my driver's test. I was nervous and I was outside and like there was a lady outside the DMV and she um picked up a rock that was just I don't know outside. So I live in Arizona and so
Yeah.
it's desert scaping.
Tons of rocks.
Picked up a rock and it was shaped like a heart and she like gave it to me and like for good luck or something. And so I'm not exactly sure where that rock is now, but
Right.
that's my favorite rock.
Okay.
I did pass my test.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps I won't say because of that rock, but it couldn't have hurt, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the second question, more complicated. Well, not really necessarily more complicated, but more likely to not necessarily have a personal experience. It's like a more of a binary
Yeah.
do or do not. It's just, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Yeah. Um, I learned that the characters in the Bad Apple video are
Yes,
Toho characters,
correct.
and my favorite is the trio that play the instruments like I don't know,
Okay.
halfway, two-thirds in.
Yes,
I've decided those are my favorite.
I do not know the names off the top of my head, but that's a thing I learned last week. That people are familiar with Bad Apple did not know that Bad Apple is Toho.
Yeah, I did not until I listened to this podcast.
See, this podcast is if nothing if but informational. If you want to learn about Bad Apple or
Exactly.
Pac-Man 2: The New Adventure, you will be happily prepared after listening to this show. But that
Definitely.
said, well, thank you for joining me today. Uh,
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun. And
Great.
I will come back for the, group segment.
Of course, yes.
So stay tuned, folks.
Yes. Stay tuned. We'll be back in about 2 minutes and 34 seconds. Goodbye for now. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. We are here with our next guest, who you may know from issue 61, I believe. Yeah, 61.
Yes.
Freshly free from the world of commission games with Monkey Business. It's Tally. Tally, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
I'm sorry that I feel bad because I forgot to. I usually send people the message. I think I forgot to send you the message of, hey, no longer exclusive. Don't worry about it anymore.
Oh, no, yeah. I was like, I don't know when this happened, so
Yes,
we'll just wait and see. So
that
it
yes
is
that
free. I didn't realize.
yes that was my mistake. It was free about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, well, it's just pretend I was busy and I didn't get around to
Of
freeing
course,
it.
just didn't get around to it. You
Yes.
know that is very much like the commission is the commission exclusivity is kind of like a formality at best. You know,
Mm.
eagle-eyed commission Indiepocalypse commissions will notice that there's actually no exclusivity language in the contract of it at all.
Uh-huh.
So they if people want to be like, well, it's kind of like just on politeness, you know, that it is not submitted ahead of time. But that aside, I have to ask you what's a variation of the Indiepocalypse question as a commission contributor, which is, and I think I know the answer to this. Of were you familiar with Indiepocalypse before I emailed you?
Yes, I
Okay,
was.
okay. And is this a Paradise connection, if or just a more
Yes, and I was
okay?
thinking, yeah, because I was like, I don't know how I found out about Indiepocalypse. Like I can't remember, but I would, if I had to guess, I would say Paradise was
Yes,
how I heard about it, or was you know um, um, passively aware of it, and then more and more aware of it
yeah.
too, over time. Yeah.
Paradise, a
Um,
frequent uh, pool of contributors and commit a commission developers, friends of the zine.
that's right. Yeah, kind of a community of game developers and cool folks who make cool things and are commonly involved in indie apocalypse. I think a few times in a row where the a submission or a commissioned
Yes,
game, which is fun to see. It's like, oh, the Paradise representation.
yes. I like on my angle. I sometimes try to and very intentionally don't lean on Paradise. You know, like, oh, Andrew, when you look at the commission, check to make sure like they are not in Paradise. You know, uh, in like a weird kind
Oh
of
no.
like, oh, let's make sure everybody gets a shot, which is like a good problem to have. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
To be like, oh yeah, this is a crew of people that makes a lot of cool stuff, and like it's a lot of just out there doing a lot of their own like weird little things. Uh, but it is like because you also
Exactly. Yeah, I would say not even like cool stuff, but like cool, weird, small stuff.
yes no, it is like often cited as with in like the same breath as like a domino club or like a newly a relatively newer like litho breakers and these different like uh, REP Big Bag. I think Big Bag is no longer existing, but Boshi's Place is kind of similarly occupies a similar space. Um, all these kind of like loose collectives that are just like out and around the world
Hmm.
who are sometimes making games together, but I feel like generally just making games in a collective space.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Even if not like because that's like we mentioned in the pre-show that or I might even mention this on the intro that there is no city of games that we're all in.
Unfortunately not. Yeah.
So it's like very game development can be very isolating.
Yeah, yeah, and I find, and like, I guess that's one thing I like about Paradise too, or like even just if anybody has looked at my game that I submitted, it's
Yeah.
a bit different than the average one that I'm not sure how much like it has there been many other like pen and paper tabletop kind of games in Indiepocalypse
Yeah.
to date. I'm not familiar with all 61
Oh,
plus
you
issues.
didn't come prepared with all 61 other issues. All and Tally, what
But
about the two bonus issues? What about the 3 bonus issues?
oh gosh.
You have you haven't memorized like
Um,
630
no.
games.
Only 532.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
So you must have missed a couple issues that did have tabletop. There've been 2 other tabletop commissions in the past from Caro blanking on their last name in the moment and Takumo Okada, both were commissioned tabletop games. And there are bits and pieces of tabletop games trickling through every now and then. So it is definitely like they are definitely permitted, you know. But I do also have like I generally don't do more than 2 tabletop games per a given issue, so they are a bit less common.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like sometimes I feel like even just with the earlier conversation around like, you know, bitsy or like poems or, you know, just alternative
Yeah.
types of, you know, game in very loose terminology or, you know, maybe just art.
Yes.
Like it feels sort of like everyone's like, oh, my code's not working properly. And I'm like, well, I'm not, you know, I think about different things or sometimes it feels a bit like I'm in my own bubble. Like I know there's other tabletop sort of communities too, but sometimes it's just like there's too many communities and I'm overwhelmed with
Yes, right.
being around. Yeah, but like it definitely is just to be in a community of creatives of different people making different things is cool to be around and to see and to feed off of that energy or share what you're working on and have that be chatted about too.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz it is like interesting how like tabletop and you know like digital intersect cuz I mean you also do tabletop you do both tabletop and digital work.
Yes, yeah.
To some degree. And there is like it's interesting also to like the tabletop is also to some degree I think like more established and like especially like in the indie space, you know.
Right, yeah, like even in like or I feel like there's like a different sort of even just like the culture on itch or like
Yeah.
you know before it's like oh my thing's really tiny, what do you mean I would like put a price tag on there? But one thing I've kind of did since the beginning for a lot of my games was I did put a price tag on it and I thought you know like let's just do this because I want to value my work a bit and then I'm also feeling self-conscious about like what do you mean somebody's going to pay me $1 for this like
Right.
you know it's easier in the sense that I have a downloadable file that can be you know monetized but versus like my bitsies which you know I don't like doesn't feel I don't know it feels different but at the same time like I like it's been an interesting experience about that like I love having community copies up
Yes. Yeah, right. That's it's more like if you're on like itch, I feel like it's more uncommon to see a tabletop game without community copies. You know. It's like a regular part of oh wait that's me. Uh-oh, what's going on here?
culture around like tabletop games or smaller like these like solo RPGs or whatever like we're all passing the same like $5 bill back and
Yes,
forth
exactly.
to each other.
Sorry, I missed part of that because my audio
Oh.
screwed up for like a second. But I think I get what I'm following up what you're saying. Yeah,
Okay.
it is right. And I was just saying that like I don't know if you heard if I missed it. I don't know what I was getting through versus me not hearing you. But the idea that and I think you were basically alluding to this that stuff like community copies are like it's rare to see tabletop games without them. You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it is like and there's like the whole feeling of how often people are like working within like each other's systems and like, oh, this is a hack of this, or this is a setting within this system, and that kind of thing. Like this, that kind of like almost like, soft collaboration,
Yeah, a lot of like hacks or um like system reference documents, SRDs. Like there's
Yeah.
so many variations on a certain game, which I thought was interesting in the sense that like I didn't do a lot of like game design balancing work for or like, so one of my games, Haunt, is like a it was inspired by like ghost hunting games or like Phasmophobia, or like,
Yeah.
the premise is sort of you're a ghost investigator. You want to go into a house and find a ghost and leave. It's another tabletop solo game where you like put playing cards down, and each playing card sort of represents a room. Also inspired kind of by like Betrayal on House on the Hill, in that sort of structure, where you're walking around. And I had like a vision in my head of that, what the game could be. But this was one of the first games that I made all like without fully like a lot of times I'll take mechanics from one, like hack one game, or use a different like base and then build on top of it. And this one I was like starting from scratch, and it's really hard to balance this game to make it like what I wanted to be. And it's interesting just the different ways that like you can get to your end product, or interesting to see. Like I like the both exists, right? This collaboration, and then somebody makes something else new, and then we're collaborating or sharing off of each other's work and stuff.
Yeah, right. And there's like I'm blanking on the system. It's some like kind of like OSRE sort of system, but like the people who made it, is it DC? I can't remember if it's DCC. It might be DCC, or something in that similar space. DCC, of course, people are familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics. But like they will print like people's modules, and have on their store and that kind of thing. Just like to these comped copies to basically like support like their system.
Yeah, exactly.
And that that exists similar in a lot of ways for, in like with the just like the independent, like people of just like, yeah, let's work together. Let's bundle all of our stuff together. Let's kind of like share each other's work. And I mean, also a lot of them, and you mentioned, you made a solo RPG, but a lot of them require other people. They're
that's what like a lot of my stuff is solo, because I have experienced the pains of needing to have friends who also have time zones that align with each other.
Yes.
So I like solo games because I can play them on my own time.
Right.
So
right.
I make solo games too.
That is it's a underestimated part of games and tabletop games of, oh yeah, right, there is you require people and like people's schedules to align. And
I once played we did play several sessions of a D&D campaign, like across I think like 6 time zones. Like we had people West Coast, Pacific, and then people in like England, and then all across the United States. And it was very hard to make things work, and that for some reason didn't end up lasting long term.
Right. Almost as if it's like, right, organizing is like super complicated and kind of requires to some degree just like a lot of people to always be. Yeah, a lot of times I feel like it just requires like a very specific like friend routine that you've acquired over like 5 years, of doing it. And it's just like, no, we've got our weekly game night. This is what we do. We do it every week. And this is our schedule.
This is our slot, and this is when it's happening. Yeah.
Correct. You're right. This is when we're doing it, and it's just a part of my week. But then, solo allows people to, get some of that similar experience, but like by themselves. And the other nice thing, which kind of alluded to earlier, and I've mentioned on the show plenty of times, tabletop games, you don't have to worry about them being broken or not, in to some degree, because players can kind of go, oh, this doesn't work, I will fix that. Or
to an extent, yeah.
Yeah.
Or we'll always run to some extent,
Right, yes. Paper always runs. You're never worried about a PDF doesn't open, Or maybe you are. If you.
Yeah, I guess, but if I have a piece of paper, that will work, yeah.
Yes. If you've got and I wonder if that is why the more common sense to charge for stuff in tabletop, it comes from doing a lot of printed versions of them and selling them for a couple bucks at markets and fairs and things like that.
Yeah, maybe, or just there's something about having a printed physical product. I went to Staples and printed out a few of my games, and they had the paper cutter thingy and the stapler that it's really long, and I was like, wow, I have a little book I have a little booklet. This is cool.
Yeah. I
have things in my hands.
Right, and you just you can pass those things to other people, and they can just get passed around. I was just filing away zines, and I have some old tabletop stuff from oh, look at this little guy I still have from 5 years ago. But I would probably never see that thing as a file, as a file on a computer. It would have just been lost forever, to some degree. But there's there's that tangibility that adds a nice quality to it. So in doing tabletop, what made you get into also doing occasional digital games, video games as they call them sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. The first games that I ever made were in Twine, interactive fiction. I got into games because my husband Penciler, who also commissioned Indiepocalypse.
Oh yes. Of surprise, the other fun thing I would do to show is just surprising connections I had no idea about.
Of Serial Man fame, I
yes,
think exactly
yes,
1
correct,
year.
Serial Man.
Yeah. Very fun. Yeah. So if I hadn't have heard about Indiepocalypse from Paradise, I would have heard about that from him. But yeah, so during COVID, and he's into games and stuff, and was you could make a game, and I was like, no, I could make a game. And was like, right. Hey, there's all of these little engines and stuff, and so I started with Twine because I do I like writing as as sort of the where I came from, and then started with interactive fiction, and I think branched a little bit then into tabletop because of the that big racial justice bundle that was in 2020 that had all those other games in there. That's kind of how I discovered that, but it was sort of almost at the same time. I would say I've been doing a little bit of that tabletop, and then also I'm exploring Twine, then finding these other Bitsy. I have a few little Bitsies, and just the fact that there are these really cool little game engines that allow people who are not familiar with programming really, or other than maybe I have a familiarity in the sense that I used to edit my Tumblr themes HTML.
Right.
I was on the internet as a teen making customizing your like profile on or I used to have a little website on Pixo, which is no
Yes.
longer, and I remember that. I don't know if that's from it. Um, and so I think I just like there's different things that you want to share and create that are conducive to different mediums. And I like Bitsy for its like, yeah, it's like simplicity and like how you can tell a little story in there. And then my other favorite little um uh engine is Downpour.
Okay. Yes, I was
Um,
going to. I was going to ask because I saw that Gary's fortune telling tent
yeah,
a downpour game, which is like a
I
recent
love,
entrant into this.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's only like a year or so that it was released and created, and that's like a fully mobile, like, you want to make a game on the go and just have it on your phone, and anybody, like, that's really the intention of like, do you want to make a game in like as fast as possible, like
Right.
just easy, something fun. Yeah, I love Gary's fortune telling, and I remember thinking when you reached out, I was like, God damn it, I'm so sad that I made Gary already,
Right.
because this is the game I would love to like submit to
It is
Indiepocalypse.
extremely Indiepocalypse core. So
Um, but Downpour, basically you take photos on your phone, and it's kind of, I think it's like a what is it called, like a flat game,
yeah.
is the term, where you're like just clicking on different parts of an image, and they're linked to different images. I did a on the Downpour like platform itself in October of last year. I did a like a games tober type of thing, where I was trying to like make a game, a Downpour, every day, and just trying, like, what does that even mean, like, it's, as small as it can be, or as big as I had the inspiration for that
Right.
particular day. And that was really fun to just like, I'm paying attention to things around me, or not, or like just like trying to let go a bit of those, like, um again, those like mental rules that we all sort of instill on ourselves, on like what is a game and a
Right.
good game, or not. And I love Downpour. I I have so much. I've like a lot of the games I would say that I'm like most proud of that I've made have been made from Downpour.
Yeah, because
um
it's something that allows you to like make something so quickly, and also very much like make something that you never release. you know.
Yeah, yeah, or like I can like soft release it by publishing it on the like Downpour interface within the app, and there's a bit of like a, featured users, or you can follow people or not, but like almost in the way that like putting it on itch makes it feel like, oh, I have to like make the itch page, and it's
Yeah.
like official, and there's like pressure that I put on myself because people follow me on itch now, and they like, I made my page all like nice looking, but like, no, I just want to like make some weird thing, and like, nobody needs to look at it. Although I did put circle on
Yes.
my itch, and then you added that to your I do the
Yes.
same thing. Like sometimes I like to just look at the collections of stuff, and it's like,
Yes.
Andrew added circle to the
The-
list. I can't believe it.
because I mean somebody else had added it to their list or rated it 5 stars, and I'm like, I am I'm a I like a lot of different and I like a lot of different stuff. Like I'm often just like going through people's like pages, like itch is a nice thing where it's like mostly game developers.
Mhm,
So I tend to look at people who comment on things because usually they are also game developers,
mhm,
and so I'm like always trying to like flip through. And also I like a lot of different stuff. My like truly it's difficult to emphasize to people how much I mean when I say when I you stretch the definition of game. I'm stretching that thing extremely far, and
mhm,
extremely wide. Uh,
mhm.
and yeah, so something like Circle, which is circles, is still like a little game within its, like, what is a game? A game is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A game is a thing
Yeah, and
that,
I feel like that's also
yeah,
like that's very like downpour, like
yeah,
I just drew a bunch of circles on some different sticky notes at my desk and took pictures of them, and you can tap through it, and it's like that's a game. That's you're interacting with it. You might like smile or laugh or be like, "What is what?" and it got a reaction out of you in some ways. So.
yeah, right. There is like just like so much that like I like it's not just like I'm not just doing like indie posturing when I say that like commercial games represent like 1% of like games as a medium, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there's so just like in terms of like what people are making and in terms of like the potential of like what games are. They are more than like running left to right and getting points and maybe you have a gun.
Yeah. Yeah, like the collective, like you walk up, go downtown in a major city or small town city and ask like 50 people what's a game, like what do you think of when you think of a game, and they'll
Right.
probably think of like Call of Duty or something, but then you've got like, well, my other favorite game one that I made, Backpack Simulator. I have the two
Yes.
versions, one of them downpour, but the original that was made in Godot. That was also again penciler rubbing off on me. You're in the and you live with a game developer who's
Right.
making games in different engines. I'm like, well, what if I did something in Godot? Maybe I could figure it out. And what if there was a game? Uh, as I had a dream that I told him, and you can see this in the description of the game. On
Yeah.
December 30th, 2023, I said, I want to make Backpack Simulator. Penciler said, what's in the backpack? And I replied, things that you need. He said, like what? And then I listed off like a snake or a fish or corn or a hook or a rock, and you can pick it, or a fork or an egg or a mouse. A gray mouse? Mm-hmm. And this was noted. I was falling asleep or I woke up and he wrote this down in a notes app and then sent it to me later. And I was like, I want to make this game. And I love this game is just like, that's the vision. I was so proud that like what I thought of and I put this into a game and that was it. I like scoped it and you put the things in the backpack and I love it so
Yes,
much and that I made a downpour.
and then you send the backpack on its way.
Yeah.
um, that is right, and that is like so much of I think building for things that you want to get out of your brain rather than like building things that you want like in theory like a market wants.
Yes, yes.
But speaking of things that people want, a market wants. I'm a market of one, and Talia wants some answers from you. And those answers, first of all, what's your favorite type of rock?
I'm gonna say like geodes, like where there's like you got the rock
Yes.
and then inside it's all the fancy crystals and stuff. Those, yeah, they're very. My grandma, I remember, had one like always on the coffee table that I would, when we went and visited, I would like inspect it. Like, this is weird. What's going on here? How come it's like boring on the outside and cool on the inside?
Right. It's nature's loot boxes, as they call them.
Yeah.
And follow second question. Do you have a favorite Toho character?
I'm gonna say no.
Yes.
I don't know if I can say favorite because I had to Google what Toho is. So I don't know
Okay,
if
that sounds like a no. But fortunately, no is an acceptable answer for this question. The rock question would not take no. I will not take no as an answer.
Yeah,
Toho.
Correct. Yeah.
I could take no as an answer. Well, Tally, thank you for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna go. I say that as if you're not gonna be back very soon. But it's always the weird thing to say to the pre group guest because they come back like 2 minutes later. But
see you in a couple minutes.
yes, right, exactly. See everyone in about 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Till then, goodbye. Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was shopping with Body Clock. Oh, I forgot to say what the first one was. I jumped right into the first one was, of course, Laughing Beach with Universal Dance. I completely missed that, but like my brain, like part of my brain, like activated and knew that I missed it. But we're back here, Tally Minimal. We're back with both of our guests. Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
We are here, fresh, fortunes red, ready to go. But that is I was always familiar with like Downpour conceptually, but I never used it, so I didn't know the logistics of it. And like the fact that it is just like taking photos with a phone, or I presume like using pictures in your phone would do the same thing.
Yeah, you can import pictures from your phone gallery, or you can take photos like within the app. Like Onions, you can import like on a couple of mine. Like I drew some stuff in Paint and then like downloaded it to my phone, so you can kind of go around. But I feel like the in the spirit of it is sort of like you take a picture of something you see around you. Like a lot of the ones are like people walked on their like lunch break, or they're like commuting and they took pictures on their way, and you can kind of like take a walk with me on my lunch. And then I just like seeing some of those little snippets into people's lives.
Yeah. I was thinking of maybe these are photos. I was thinking of Johnson, a Plain Man.
I think those are taken like of the photos of because the app, like if you take a picture in the app, there's a kind of cool like transparency, like before you say go, you can like draw with your finger, like erase the background, I only want these. So I think they were probably on their plane like taking pictures of the
and there is like a blurriness to some of them that I'm realizing now when I'm thinking about it.
There's some minor like also like you can sort of edit in the app a little bit, not not super fancy, but I feel like again it's all sort of just like with the that's the vibe of the Downpour games.
Yes, that I mean as also a high recommendation of good Downpour games. I think about Johnson and Plain Man a lot.
Very good. It's very good.
This is
also the Terry. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the wrong.
Kavanaugh.
Yes, Terry has a few amazing.
Yes,
I like the proper cup of tea.
That's also the interesting thing of like the longer I've been around, like the kind of like part of what I think is going to like coalesce into like an indie space, because I feel like there are indie people that still stay like within the indie space, that still feel like more detached from like the industry side of things. I think Terry Kavanaugh is someone I think of a lot like that, who is essentially very successful, but still feels like connected to a lot of like the indie space. And I think as you get more of those like artists that always want to be indie forever, and don't start doing like, now I'm going to transition to giving speaking tours or whatever indie people do. I'm a consultant now.
I'm thinking of a better word than like sell out.
Right. But I think that's only because you want to be nice on.
That's got a negative connotation.
Yes, and I think that's only because you want to be nice on the internet. If there cello would be a term I would use. There's a lot of meaner words I would use, but also I think it's perfectly fine to be like critical and to have like different opinions. I think that's sometimes like trickier for people to navigate on the internet. To be like, oh, these people just have fundamentally different ways of looking at games, and also that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think about like the concept of kill gameplay,
Yes.
That is like, I'm
unfamiliar.
It's a heady concept of there's a lot of reading involved. If you look at Drokin is like the catalyst of this idea of kill gameplay. and different people use that term differently, can text the ideas different ways. Does it mean like games respecting your time, and like the idea of like it's something I'm not online enough to be fully versed in like the argument of
Mm-hmm.
but I do go, yes, there should be people who like their ethos is kill gameplay and someone else's ethos is love gameplay, and both people can be right, and
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and like it's healthy for art forms to have like varying and like contradictory and opposed movements and philosophies.
Yeah.
Feels in the same vein of like, let the definition of game being as stretched as thinly as
Yes.
possible to be like, what is a game, and
Right.
who decides that?
Yeah, and games also have this particular problem, perhaps more than other mediums, where a lot of people seem like they're trying to solve them.
Yeah.
And find what is the right way, and go, oh, those plebes in the past didn't know anything. Now we know how to make video games. We have to remake everything to make sure it has quality of life improvements. Whatever that means.
Yes, yeah. Or like, why can't we have jank mechanics
Right.
for the sake of jank? Like,
Oh,
or as
yeah. Hempuli has some. Let's see if it's just still down or up or whatever.
Yes.
Gameplay as a disservice, or games as a disservice rather than games as a service. He's got a Tetris that, as you clear more lines, another Tetris board will play up, so you're playing Tetris in 2 or 4 windows at the same time.
Yeah.
Like games that get worse the longer you play them.
Right. It's like this idea that, games are supposed to be fun, that art is supposed to be enjoyable. It's like...
Well, then I'll points to the tower.
Right, exactly. Sometimes,
yeah,
things are meant to be, like, miserable, or, like, if you're getting frustrated, like, maybe that's the point,
Yeah.
Sometimes the intention of art is to frustrate, to, like, oh, wow, this character didn't have a satisfying arc. It just kind of ended unceremoniously.
Yeah, sometimes it's a long-winded novel, and sometimes it's a dad joke.
Right, exactly. And it's like the idea that art isn't meant for pleasure, that it's meant for... Because I always think of it as, like, my definition, for lack of a better word, or like how I think of it the most is like, in which I kind of mentioned during when I was talking in Tally segment, of like, we have a thing in our brain that like we can't conceptualize or can't easily say, and like art is part of the way that we say it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like how
I've been doing art therapy, and that's kind of part of it.
Right. Because sometimes it can be hard to like, or like impossible to convey an idea that you could in art, in the same way that it could be impossible for someone to understand that idea if you tried to like explain it to them. But only like explained and understood like through art. Because I mean, really is, it's just kind of like a very complicated version of communication,
Right. Yeah, that's open to everyone's interpretation, and
right.
How you experience it versus what the author felt when they created it is like not always going to be the same, or probably won't be the same.
Right. What if we made conversation extremely complicated and like obtuse, and then that's what art is. Not to get too high-minded, like what is human language,
Yeah.
But what is human language really? It's just a thing we made up. And
Yeah.
And we have a lot of them, actually. So, and they all have their different nuances and everything. and different meanings and contexts. It's so much going on that to check around to the full topic, impossible to nail any one thing down, concretely,
Yeah.
including like what games are. Because I'm sure plenty of people would look at like 8-bits and go, "That's not a real game." You don't do anything.
Yeah.
You don't make a game where you don't make any choices. I need my choices to matter. I need to have impact. It's like, or like I need to have a challenge.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's like plenty, and like maybe that is like something of like definitions of like games that basically display some kind of challenge versus games that don't. Games where the only challenge is like interpreting the work, which is a challenge in well in its own right.
It's just, it keeps reminding me of for more shameless plug, a
Yes.
little piece that I wrote. I actually originally published it on Tumblr, about a time that I saw I my friend's house and saw a gecko that was like smashed in between the screen door and the door jamb, whatever, and it reminded me of a different gecko that I saw like a decade ago at my friend's house, of this gecko. And like that, how did I start? I said, actually, I love it when art is terrible in an interesting way.
Right.
I love it when art is messy and rough and exposes the interior of a being. I love that I get to experience art that's different than what I expect from it. I love art that makes me ask why it was made to be the way it is. I want to see the details of things like geckos and door frames in ways I never would have thought to look before.
Yeah. Right. It is like perspectives outside of your own. Exactly as you're saying, and then like that little. Not only that language, but that in itself, the flourish of the gecko in the door frame, is itself like an evocative piece of art within a conversation about art. As it is like a thing I'm sure plenty of people have like seen these small little bits in their life, I do not have geckos around my part. Though, man, I wish. Those are cool. Those are cool. Those are cool little guys. Are they the ones that like do push-ups to impress people?
Fun. I don't know if I've ever seen a gecko do a push-up. I know I've seen lizards like on the cement block walls in the backyard do push-ups.
Yes.
They do crawl around like on the ceiling and stuff, so that's pretty neat.
Oh my God. I also don't live anywhere near geckos or lizard things. Anyway,
they're great little guys. I like them. Because I know there's like I'm fairly certain there's like one lizard or maybe series of lizards like that. Their like mating thing is like doing push-ups to be like, look how tough I am.
Nice.
Just like I always thought it was like a temperature regulation thing, but it might be that as well.
It could be. I just like the idea of them doing push-ups.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yep. They can use lizards can also use push-ups to communicate when finding a mate.
Yeah, exactly. Just
all right.
The classic thing of like, look how buff I am, though.
It is.
Look how. Do so many push-ups. Check out this temperature regulation I'm doing.
It's getting hot in here, so take off all your scales.
Yes.
No, wait, hold on. That sounds dangerous.
But do they do that too? Do geckos shed? Do they leave behind little gecko skins?
I don't.
I guess
you. What's the name for that? I know that's what like cicadas do and lobsters do. I think that's just exoskeleton.
Okay.
Creatures.
We're getting to the point where it's like I got to talk about animals I don't have. You gotta drill down all these different animals. I've got I'm up in the snowy north, so we've got your regular retinue of birds, squirrels, chipmunks, foxes, turkeys. Turkeys are a new addition,
Oh man.
and they're
Oh, we've got chickens. People got chickens in their backyards and sometimes in their front yards. Just
yeah. We've
driving
got
around to see a chicken.
I have also seen people who keep chickens around here. They would sometimes just like
Yeah,
put.
we've got a. Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, okay. I was saying,
Yeah.
my parents raised zebra finches. Have
Okay.
since I was pretty young, so we got them in the backyard.
Where's oh, okay. Just they're just little guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, these little guys
I
touching
don't know. When I think
bees.
of home, I think of their little chirps.
Right. Yeah. Look at this. All these. It is like. I think a lot of it the weird relationship that human beings have to like other animals, and like
Hmm.
Mm.
this terrible prey instinct of like I want to be friends with all these guys, which is I guess both a terrible predator and prey instinct, you know, of
Yeah.
All these
I,
cute little guys. I want to
right.
let's be friends.
I want to be friends with both these things that could eat me and things that I should want to eat. I want to be friends with both of them, and like the weird like cohabitation that we have with them. It's very humans are really odd things, you know that. Odd,
Yeah.
really peculiar. But that is
Yeah. I
like
think of
yeah, go ahead.
like, isn't there a species of ant that keeps like pets like
Maybe
talking out of my ass?
I don't know.
I'm Googling, I'm like, ants that pets.
Ants that have pets.
I don't know. They have pets like
I mean, there's got to be. We can't be strictly the only. There's got to be others. Like maybe if we don't recognize it in the same way. But there are all sorts of like peculiarities that we have.
mhm.
But now I mean now that we're talking, now that I've got talking so much about regional animals, I feel like I need to go back to throwback an Indiepocalypse classic that I'm trying to think about of things I may. And this is sometimes not the easiest question to answer if you don't have the experience. But are there any like have you traveled much outside of the Arizona area?
I've gone to New York,
That's pretty far away.
Connecticut. Yeah, it's pretty far away.
Yeah.
Texas, lots of Utah. I'm ex-Mormon.
Okay.
Family's still Mormon, so I've visited a fair amount of Utah, which isn't not all Mormons have done that, but I very much have. So,
Yes. Right. There's. I feel like it's not like probably not a requirement. I guess I don't see enough. I don't see much around. You've got a lot of flavors of. I'm sure Protestantism up in here in New England, but not Mormon that I've seen.
yeah.
But the question.
I don't know.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. The question about animals.
No,
Right.
this question was about food.
Oh.
Going all the way back to earliness of were there any regional foods that you're like did not realize you were regional until you had left the state that you just kind of took for granted as being something that was everywhere?
There's two problems with that question for me. One is
Okay.
that for most of my life I've had a restrictive eating disorder.
Okay. Yes.
I actually um and so there were a lot of things that I just didn't eat and didn't think to, but I guess like Mexican food I've taken as a like, oh yeah, that's just everywhere. Like,
right.
you've got your tamales lady, of course, right? Up there in New
Yes.
England.
Oh yeah. Of course. I can't cross the street corner without seeing my tamales lady. No,
Yeah, so
never seen one in my life even. But yeah, that is
So I think that's mine.
perfect. I suppose Tally, same question if you were prepared for such a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I'm like, so I'm Canadian.
Okay.
And I love like knowing Canadian specific
Oh,
things like
I've been to Toronto
Mm.
3 times. I know all about all dressed chips and
yeah,
Tim Hortons and
yeah,
um there was one other thing I'm
ketchup
blanking.
chips,
Ketchup, yes.
ketchup chip. Um yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. I feel like there's something recently because like I love knowing that kind of thing. Like okay, or like Smarties are rockets and
Yes.
they're like the different
Mm.
thing or like ketchup. I mean, I definitely when I was a kid, I didn't realize that that was like Canadian specific flavors and stuff. I think I like recently learned that like so Timbits, while they I always thought they were just donut holes, they're actually like slightly different in a way that now I can't remember off the top of my head.
Wait, there. Now I am like I assume Timbits were just Munchkins as I know them colloquially. Uh,
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where I just had that conversation. Oh, they're baked instead of fried.
oh,
So they're
okay.
like they're a bit more
Oh.
cakey than regular donut holes. And that was like 2 months ago that I like learned that. Because I would always just be like, no, they're donut holes. Like I don't really know what the difference is. But um yeah, I'm being, I guess, similarly when I visited South like Utah or areas of the States, I was like, I didn't realize that like there's like Mexican food or like that's like a whole, it's like, well, what do you mean? I just go to like Taco Bell. No,
Right.
or
Oh
like
no.
Winston's painfully like no, um there's
Right.
like real Mexican
Will
food.
you get your Taco Bell poutine, of course, which
Yeah,
is poutine but with the kind of like that Taco Bell nacho cheese goo.
yeah.
Surely they've done that. Now I put it in my that cursed thought in my brain. Surely they've done that at least once, right?
I don't know. I feel like poutine is not like as in, I didn't have it for a long
Okay.
time until I went east. I'm on like
Yes.
Western Canada, but then
Right.
like when I visited Quebec and like I was like, well, I need to have like poutine as like my like I have to do this, and that was one of the ones where I was like, this is like fine, I guess.
Yes, it's very
um,
squeaky.
yes, very squeaky. I don't know that that's like a yeah. Canada is just so huge that
Yeah.
there's not like not everything's on all sides or
Yes.
like
That's the
people will
other
be like,
thing.
well, you got your bags of milk.
That's
I'm
a good
like, well,
point, yeah.
I missed my bags of milk when I
Right.
lived
Right.
in Toronto.
Yeah. That's the because
Yeah.
I've only ever been to Toronto.
Mhm.
And I guess they've had it, and I've only even then had it like the one time. But like there is, right? You just tend to assume that like parts of Canada just like all have the same thing. Forget that it is as wide as the United States, of course, um,
Hmm.
and thus can encapsulate such a similar wide variety of like regional specifics.
Mhm.
Um, though not as functionally, they're functionally maybe as tall, but like let's say like the top of the territories or whatever, a bit more inhospitable than say South Texas
Yeah, a bit
is.
more sparsely populated.
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, like what's the like? I think the like some huge percentage of Canada lake's population basically lives in um that little uh, offshoot where Toronto is that kind of pokes down into the States. Like it's sort of like there and like Vancouver, and then everywhere else is like not very much people.
Right. It's not as
Hmm.
welcoming, you know.
Yeah.
America's got this kind of ideal slice, you know, of a hemisphere.
And not much else.
Right, right.
Not these days.
I
No, no,
I
but
am a I am a winter lover, so I feel like I don't know if that's just by
Oh,
nature of
good.
growing up in like a
right.
place that was frequently in like like -20, -30 Celsius in the winter and snowy, but um I am since now living in a place of Canada that is less snowy than it was, and I find myself missing it. Like
I
that's a very funny.
I
A
get
lot of
that.
people are like, oh, you moved away from the cold and snow. I'm like, no, but like Christmas kind of sucks when there's no snow on the ground. It's
I
supposed
I
to be like the vibe.
I often wonder the same thing of like, of like, oh, I have 4 seasons, Um,
Hmm.
in the summer, the temp it's trying to kill you through heat, and then in the winter it tries to freeze you to death. And like what is life if like you're not emerging from winter, And you go, we survived another winter,
Yeah.
and you
Another
go
75-degree winter here in Phoenix.
exactly right. How do you
Oh,
even
that's
how do you even have seasonal depression down there?
oh, it happens in the summer
Oh, all right,
It's
because
just a
it's
when
different
it's like
season.
105.
right,
Yeah.
right. A different reason you don't want to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a whole other like uh, uh, regional, but that's also the benefit of the show and why I like doing it. Of like three
Yeah.
three different corners of this North America. All of us
Hmm.
probably like 6-hour flights apart. But then like the beauty of the internet puts all people in the same room, if even for an afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It is nice. Oh, I have a question for you guys, if you don't mind.
yes, I'm
Ooh.
always open to questions.
So I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing lately because it is not connected to the internet for the most part.
Yeah.
So I can stay away from the brain rot and the doom scrolling, whatever. Do you guys have any like comfort games or comfort activities that you've been into?
I generally have actually just gotten very good at like turning off the internet.
Oh,
Um,
good, smart.
like on Sundays, I'm basically not on. Like my phone is basically not on at all. And Saturdays is like
No.
I'm barely on the internet. I'm just doing other stuff. Um, my comfort is weirdly like not one thing, but like having piles of things and completing piles of things.
That sounds healthy, actually. Lots of enrichment in your environment.
Like I have a pile of I unboxed a pile of comics just before this show, and I will put them next to a bed, and then I will slowly whittle through that pile. You know,
Hmm.
all sorts of those sorts of things.
I think I would have, well, I haven't played it in a while, but Animal Crossing definitely was like my comfort slash coping game. Like when New Horizons came
Hmm.
out during COVID, that was like all I did. I was
Yeah.
unemployed and trying not to think too hard about the world. And
Yeah,
so
same.
I was pulling like 14-hour days on Animal Crossing and it was amazing. Maybe I was great.
Yeah.
Right now I played Factorio for the first time.
Ooh.
And I've my our dishes have never been worse. No. um if you're familiar with Factorio and the notorious brain suck that it takes over your life, which is funny to me because I was never drawn into it before. I've seen people playing it and looked at it, and the like aesthetic felt very like grunge, and like I was like, well,
Mm-hmm.
this game doesn't look like a game I would like, so I kind of dismissed it. And then Pants was playing the Space Age DLC, and then I was looking at it more, and I was like, this looks like a game that I would like. And now I am making uh, spreadsheets on the side of my desk at work, thinking about how to organize my future. So I think that's
Oh, I
my
love doing that.
focus game.
Yeah.
Oh, any game where I can make a spreadsheet, that's a chef's
Yeah,
kiss.
yeah.
Right.
I'm
And
like,
that's
Just
I
doing
like
flour
Stardew
brain.
Valley, so like this is actually kind
Yeah.
of like Stardew Valley. That's the hot take that we've got.
Oh.
Stardew Valley thinks it's cute, and it's not decimating the local economy by me shipping out $1 million worth of
Oh, yeah.
ancient fruit wine every day. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm just making a factory on an alien planet, and
yes.
kind
Yeah.
of the same.
And that's like the weird thing about, in a show where you mentioned kill gameplay,
Yeah.
Hmm.
Factorio is like 10,000% gameplay. And it's like
Yeah.
how these
The
games are like
opposite.
different things, It's, and
Yeah.
how I think kind of like our definition of calling everything games, like when they're doing extremely different things.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like, like the games you make for like even are like very different than like a Factorio like or Animal
Yes.
Crossing like games.
Yeah.
Uh, but they're doing different things. It's almost like Factorio is almost like games like that and Animal Crossing are almost like our version of like building a model ship in a bottle.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're almost like hobby activities more than like games meant to be completed.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
It's just that we are now because we can't afford a basement full of a giant train set tableau.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
spend $30 on Factorio or Animal Crossing and then make our equivalent of that,
Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. So-
which is nice and sad in its own. Like, what if, like, would it be nice though if we had like the self sufficiency to be able to build our own little fantasy world, but also, you know, it's nice that anyone has. It's nice that it's such an expensive hobby, to have.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And as I've had
No, go ahead.
I've had to move a couple times in the last couple years,
Yeah.
and
Solidarity.
boxing and unboxing all of my stuff, and like I really do appreciate having an Animal Crossing where I don't like versus a train set where I have
Right.
to like pack up or decide like, you know what,
Yeah.
am I, you know,
Am I
as I'm
finally?
downsizing and moving back in with my parents, like,
Yes.
is this does this spark joy
Right. You never
still?
like. You never like. Is this the move where I finally give up the Animal Crossing island? He's like, no. It's in a tiny
Yeah,
little cartridge.
yeah, keep it with me.
It goes. It can
I
go
feel
with you
that so much.
everywhere.
I've moved us too many times in the last few years, and yeah, real.
I have giant piles that are threatening me to never move, and I will never blink. I'm like, yes, okay, fine. I am not going to pack up 3,000 books or whatever,
Yeah,
or hopefully never have to. Uh,
fingers crossed.
yes,
Knock on wood for you.
right. Well, I've got a nice the comfort of non-game jobs where they're like, you're here forever, positive, close parentheses. And I'm like, glad
Yeah.
to be. Glad to not have to worry about that part of life.
Hmm.
Uh, gives me, uh, finding little pockets of stability where you can find little pockets of stability.
Hmm.
Uh, but
Definitely.
but yeah, that is like right the desire to build, because I think that comes from a similar desire to like. I was talking to my friend about like, or no, it was on this show recently. About the concept of digging holes. Just like the
Oh, there was
pleasure
that
of,
song.
digging a hole.
I like digging holes, hiding things inside them.
Right, or like that weird desire to like to build things, uh, and
Make nests.
yeah, yeah, we just like make stuff and make things, uh, in games that kind of like occupy like. So I wonder if like games should be like, oh, this is like a hobby game. This is not like a game like Animal Crossing is not a game like the way that like uh, you know any number of games that you've made are a game. It's like a game, but it's more like a hobby. Animal Crossing is my hobby.
Yeah. Yeah, versus like something that you said before, I wrote it down because I felt
Yeah.
it felt important was games building it to get it out of your brain.
Yes. Right.
And my most recent game on itch.io was one of those. The not taking the time to feel it will kill me is the
Yes.
full
Right.
title. Um versus, I don't know, like I keep thinking about art therapy that I've
Yeah.
been doing. Like when you talked about building things. When I walked into, so it's like a studio space, and then they do groups throughout the day. They've got like conference rooms or whatever. Um, and just walking in and seeing all of the different materials, perler beads and fabric and yarn and paper mache and all sorts of tools. Like I don't know, there was so freeing walking into that space and seeing all these tools for creation. I guess I don't know. Now I'm comparing it with games and thinking about like, I
Yeah,
don't know, have you ever walked into a game engine and been like, "Wow, look at all these tools I can
right,
can
right.
use."
But like, it really is that. Just like games are just like another a thing, and just another thing that we make. You know, art is
Hmm.
just another thing that we make. Um, Games just have like the misfortune, I think, often of being born into like the tools reaching peak accessibility at the same time of the like that hustle culture also coming
Mm,
into fruition.
yeah.
So the two kind of get like tied together of like, oh, you want to make games, but make sure you have your brand, your social media ready to go. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
when it's like you can just kind of make them for yourself. Um,
Now I'm thinking about like running a running a group, but that are like running it by one of they're not called counselors, they're like, or I
right.
guess art therapists, yeah. Like a group where you make a game and it's not necessarily meant to be shared or anything, like just to process stuff, like how that would work. Like
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
introducing this tool of processing to other people.
Right. Like what if like for art therapy, like we here's like Twine and Bitsy and Downpour, just like little engines you can make something in
Hmm.
a day, and like introducing it as like a kind of art.
Yeah.
I definitely did like speaking of like moving too much, like I made a downpour as part of processing just the
Mm.
the grief of needing to move again when I didn't, expect it. And I love that like the what I did with that is I took one like 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I drew everything. I took some crayons. I drew the pictures. I took the pictures of my crayon pictures and I made my downpour and like just to kind of get out how I was feeling about that experience. And also like very sort of, here's the space you have. You can draw it. You don't even need to like, you figure out what to take the photos of. You can draw it on paper and make that. And like I think that seems
Hmm.
like a really like I like that as like a yeah, processing. Like it's like your own sort of journal in a different way to share what you're feeling or
Yeah.
work through it.
Right. Yes. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I mean, constantly about kind of uh, this. Right. It's just like what is the broader potential of games outside of a thing that's like because like what's your like Tally, what Steam next fest are you gonna put that on? Like
I even like for a long time I like was it I was like, do I even make this public on
right.
Downport, keep it private? Like or I like, I both want to share this with people because I am like, this is the shit I'm going through, but
Yeah.
also like it's really raw and personal and like,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm like come like can you pre-order my my trauma
Yeah.
processing game?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's like so much of this is kind of like do like everything the idea of everything we do and making it such that it is like presented to another person.
Hmm.
And like the difficulties of like um, just kind of making something for yourself and it being available, but not being like meant. It's like a hard thing I'm trying to convey, but of like
I didn't make this for somebody
right,
else. I didn't make it with a player in mind. I made
correct,
it for me, and I can then later give it to you to experience as well, and
Yeah.
yeah,
maybe you'll get something out of that. But it wasn't like crafting a player's experience and like thinking about
Hmm.
that framing when I was making it. I was just like, I feel like crap, and I want to
yeah,
think of that.
Yeah, it's my interactive journal entry.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think part of the difficulty in that is like because you're then if you were to publish it because then you are then so immediately accessible to other people. Um,
Mm.
Yeah.
I think that like even if you're like turning comments off on your page or turning reviews off, like it's still like you have social media presences or like the accessibility of artists. I think it's its own like other like curse, uh,
Yeah.
of like it feels weird like and this is kind of related to like I've been touting for a while that people should stop taking feedback. Like you need to take less or just like take a lot less feedback. um,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've been working on that with my therapist. Like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, okay, but what do other people think? No, no, no,
yeah,
not what do other people think about what you want to do. What do you want to do? Like, oh,
yeah,
okay, like I can actually, that can be my main consideration is what I want.
like one of the I found one of the most helpful things for me back in my pre-Indiepocalypse making games era is like
Hmm.
a phrase that helped me a lot was like, well, not everything's for everybody. When people said, I don't like this part of this about
Yeah.
this or this, and I'm like, well, that's fine. Like maybe you just don't like it. Like realizing people are running up against concepts that I did not want to remove or did not want to change, and instead of going, oh well, maybe
Yeah.
they're right, I should change something. Go no, no,
Instead you say that sounds like a you problem.
yeah, right. uh, I mean, with I have the benefit of like I get that feeling super strong with Indiepocalypse because I'm like, hell, these aren't even mine, and they're fully
Hmm.
done. So it's like, uh, 100% people are not looking for feedback because they're never touching them ever again, most
Yeah.
likely. So they are what they are, um, and then like that is like that difficulty of like maybe you don't want to hear somebody's opinion on something. Like you want people to see your art that you
Mm.
made, but you don't want to hear what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
Uh, or at least you don't want to see it like directly. You don't want to directly receive it.
Yeah, like you could talk, like they can talk about it, or with your friends, or have them experience it. But
Right.
like,
Or they like, oh yeah, they like posted, oh, I played this game about someone who's about someone processing how they were moving and like, but like that's different than being like saying that directly to you.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's nice to say like, oh, this person's telling me they relate to me, but sometimes it's nice to have that like degree of separation between art and like
Yeah.
audience.
I don't have to keep remembering the time that I was in that place. Like I can have it out to share with people, but I don't have to
mm,
revisit it.
Right.
yeah,
And, but it's like it's just the mechanisms of online make that hard to do.
Yeah, it does.
To make it like I mean to some degree. I mean there are people who I'm looking at someone right now. I'm like, huh, they seem awfully invisible. Like, how do I contact this person? Uh,
yeah,
Yeah,
which,
I made a blue sky.
woo,
Partially because I was like I don't want someone to have to like comment on one of my things on Itch.io and be like, "Hey, let's chat."
yes, you're right.
Like
I
become more
I
accessible.
I'm a huge fan of having an email, an accessible email.
Hmm.
Even if it's a new email address, to make an accessible email, because like I feel like there's less expected urgency with answering an email. There's like the privacy of an
Yeah.
email that you don't get with like someone commenting or like messaging you on a website. It's like
Yeah.
writing a letter to somebody
Writing a letter,
electronically.
like an electronic. Yeah.
Yeah.
You, yeah, you got it beforehand.
And I like that. I like the kind of comfort of this little box that these things live in. That's all it's for.
Hmm.
Imagine if your mailbox was
That
also
is
like
nice.
imagine if your mailbox was also your phone and like where you watched your favorite shows and like
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
that
I
is
turned off like I used to have all my emails like on my phone, like notifications and
right.
stuff, and it was all there all the time. And it was at some point I was like, I just turned it off, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. Like I can
Yeah.
just intentionally like check I mean my work email is completely separate. It's not even on my phone, but like even just the personal, like
Yeah.
having that just like passively there all the time or popping up, it was like,
Yeah.
this is horrible. I can just check it in. Like now I can just check my email, and that's the email time. And it's kind of cool to just, yeah, like to have, I totally agree with like you about email and like just have an email. Like I recently started a blog in the wake of co-hosts going down.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I the blogging platform I went on doesn't have comments like intentionally by the person who made it, but I added a little like link to reply by email to my posts, and I've had a couple people send me an email, and it feels very kind of like, it's even just like it doesn't necessarily even need a reply, or you
Right.
can just kind of send a little
Like a
email
little
note, or
postcard.
yeah, or like just a little, maybe I reply, and it doesn't have sort of that urgency exactly like that's like a message of like, okay, I gotta answer this like now, or all of these like
Hmm.
um uh other, or like I don't know, I was like never going to put comments on there because
Yes.
I feel like that's just, you're asking for potential problems, like not that very many people I think even look at my blog or anything, like, I don't have like huge sort of followings or anything, but
Right.
it's just sort of like once we invite the public into a space, there's a risk of
It only takes
people
one weird
being
person to be
weird.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's just easier to like not have access to not give weird people access.
Right.
Boundaries. That's the word.
Yes,
Yeah.
Setting up
boundaries.
Yeah.
boundaries.
Boundaries are very handy things to have. Um,
Super, super good. We love them.
yeah, it's like
Boundaries, like you got your walls and also your gates or your little mail slot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have that is very much like I have extreme like I there is like Andrew Indiepocalypse exists differently than regular Andrew. uh,
Hmm.
it's just like I try I have loose regional awareness of where I am perhaps because but I don't like the I know I don't like the idea of like like people who like go online and, like talk about their families and I'm like that's too much. I don't need to know about anything. Uh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like I don't need to
None
come
of my
up here.
business.
Right, right. I never has really learning about a person's life through a content improved my experience with them. Uh, I have
Yeah.
I have removed. I'm like I want to strictly like whatever it is in life when you find a reverse to parasociality is what I am. Uh, but um, yeah, and social media is very weird. I realize it's like the worst version of everything that it tries to do. It's like, what if we made everything worse? Uh, like it's just like bad. Like just like structurally, it's just bad at all the things that it does. Like I don't think you can ever make it good at those things. Uh,
Yeah. You gotta find like pockets of, I don't know, like I have my Facebook mainly because I don't know, that's how I learned about like my 10-year high school reunion.
right, right.
Was it wasn't even like it's how they organized it. And my family, my dad's side of the family, we get together, and so that's where the planning
Yeah,
for that sort of thing happens in our family Facebook group, but that's it.
I've determined that I can't go to class reunions until I have a Wikipedia page. And then
I went and I was like, guys, I say fuck now, and they were like, no.
but it is, and it's also something I never thought of because I have no relation to any of those people anymore. It's
Yeah.
like it's a particular kind of weird thing. I'm like, I wonder what those. Also, like so many of them, I've only looked up a couple, because I knew they were interested in acting. So I'm like, did they ever do anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Are they in something?
I'm like, do they have IMDb pages? Let me look. And they do. They do have different IMDb pages.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so you're like, I need a Wikipedia page before I talk to you ever again.
Exactly. Like, what have you been up to? This is what I've been up to. Look me up. But it is like, it's something I have no impulse to do. But that would be a fun thing, maybe, to have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Uh,
And your pizza pranks.
yes.
Indiepocalypse controversy.
Uh-oh.
No.
Uh-oh.
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
A curse cast upon you. Oh no, I take it back.
No, I mean, that is my favorite. They're very really memes that I think about. I mean, the true curse of memes is that very few of them are funnier than like the first thing that the thing they're ripping off often.
Mm-hmm.
But one I do think about a lot is the Vince McMahon getting, Vince McMahon, the classic Vince McMahon template of him getting more excited.
Yeah.
And it is, I think about that one just because I have that. There was one that somebody put of like someone's Wikipedia pages, like personal life, biography, and then, eventually gets down to like controversies. Because I do think that a lot of time when I look at someone's Wikipedia page of like, ooh, a controversy section. Yeah, the thing is, the problem is I said games were bad. And you're bad for making them. I hate them.
Yeah. Cool.
But all that aside, we're getting close to 2 hours, if you can believe it.
Wow.
I know, it just keeps on, time just keeps on trucking along,
Mm-hmm.
You just keep talking, and then you find a new little avenue to go down.
That's true.
And you just keep on moving on. But that said, do either of you have any last minute questions or statements, non-promotional? Because we'll get into promotional, of course, after that. But anything non-promotional you need to say before you start to wrap up the show?
I do. I have one, which was
Yeah.
Tally, when you mentioned that your husband was Pantsleur, that I felt a bit starstruck. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that guy. I love that guy's games. I don't love him like you do, for sure, for sure.
Oh,
That's
that's
sorry.
fun. I'll pass it along. That feels kind of, I don't know. It's like to realize that somebody else would be like kind of starstruck. Like, I don't know. It's like, well, I don't know. We're just kind of regular, normal people.
Right.
Trying to make weird games, and that's kind of cool, Yeah.
What, my instinct was like, oh,
I
was like, indie game power couple.
Yeah, he's got yeah, he's got a Pico 8 free cell clone, whatever, that I play whenever I'm out, like waiting at the doctor's office or whatever, like before a therapy. And so,
oh, fun. Yeah, I know. That's just, that's fun. That's fun to hear too. Like in the just talking on the flip side of like, not, just making games for yourself or in your bubble, but at the same time, it's very fun to hear when your little things that you make have trickled out into other people. Like, that's part of your doctor's office waiting routine, or you're kind of pulling this up because it's a idle thing that you want to play again, or just some random person in Arizona is playing these games.
Yeah, that is like, I think they're really kind of easily over. Like the nice thing I think that is like maybe popping up more in like like it's like the new digital. Like I am to show my age, perhaps too much. Like this is like it is reminding me of like, oh, this is kind of like itch is kind of coalescing to some people as like a new grounds, of like
Mm.
just
Mhm.
like people are like, oh no, I just play a lot of like small free games on itch all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's becoming more ubiquitous as
Mhm.
like a place where free games live to play. And I think it's cool as more and more people like get into that. And then there is a nice thing of like, oh, I those are people. The nice the plus side of
Yeah.
accessibility of like, oh, those are people. I am two steps one step removed from this person whose game I play all the time. Weird things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that I think that's that we miss. I think in not having like the same like cohesive spaces or that pop up in like
Mhm.
arts and like it all being kind of like unconnected. But anyway, this is not to get too overly sidetracked on
Yeah.
that concept of. That's why I say start wrapping up because I'm always like,
Yeah.
huh,
20 more minutes later,
right,
we get
right. I'm always like,
sidetracked. Yeah.
someone was like, I have a thing to say, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting. Like, it touches on so many other interesting things that we haven't talked about. Of
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
of like, the feeling that it is often, you mentioned the idea of gay art and is just trading the same $5 back and forth forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel like when I buy
Yeah.
every time I buy a game on itch and then I get a notification that somebody bought my games and I feel like, yeah, we're all just kind of we could all just make these free and then live in a commune and
Right.
their money doesn't exist anymore.
But then somebody else
Yeah.
is like, oh, that food you want costs money, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you're like, didn't you join our
Mhm.
itch commune?
Yeah. Come on, Jenner. Yeah.
Yeah, like sure, this food
An
costs
itchy
money.
commune? That doesn't sound very comfortable.
No, not
Not an itchy one.
no.
Yeah.
We'll find a different one, but it's like it's like part of the deal, buddy. You bought my game, and then I'll buy your bread, but then you have to buy my game afterwards. It's our roundabout barter system.
Mhm.
But yeah, though it is the interconnectedness of it all, and like there's all sorts of anyway. Any other last final things before we get into the true wrap up?
I don't have anything else
Perfect.
that I can think of.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, I'm
said
sure
my
I could keep
piece.
talking for as long as you need. As like,
Yes.
but I
Perfect.
will
Yeah.
refrain from opening more cans of worms.
No, that is fine. I am often happy to like talk forever on these things, but I'm like, oh, you can't talk forever. Eventually, people have to leave,
Yes.
including me. Like when I'm like, huh, I'm getting hungry. When I
Yeah.
feel,
Yeah.
Our bodies having requirements like food.
yeah, that is usually my dinner bell is the Indiepocalypse bell, basically. uh, um, so that said, and fully wrapping up, Tally, if people are looking for your work, we mentioned a lot of it. Where can they find that work?
I am Tally Winkle on, well, places that have usernames.
Yes.
And most of my stuff is on itch, and that links to most of my other stuff. So if you go to tallywinkle.itch.io, you will see my games and things that may be called games.
Yes, and game adjacent ephemera, all sorts of things.
Yes.
And Mini Wolf, where can people find your work if you want people to find your work?
I very much would like people to define my work.
Yes.
So luckily, if they look they look at Mini Wolf, that's MINIWOOLF,
Yes.
Mini Wolf .itch.io or .itch.io.
Yeah.
I'm also on Blue Sky at Mini Wolf. And got some games. I've got some, just gonna call them tweets. They're not tweets anymore. Some
Yes.
posts.
Posts.
And I
Beautiful.
plan to.
Don't let anyone ever call them skeets or anything else like that.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I I hate
Those are
skeet.
those are things you
I
should.
hate Keats.
I hate skeets. I hate chos. I hate
Ugh.
everything. I hate everything. I hate every cute name
Oh,
for something.
oh.
The only thing I like posts and I like reposts or blogs and reblogs.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
That's all I want in my life.
Anyways.
I do not want a brand. I am not going to listen to what a brand tells me.
Silence brand.
Precisely, that is me.
Exactly.
I have no respect for them. But perfect. Yes, you can find that there, and I presumably, if you've got the games and writing as well.
Oh yeah, and my books.
Yes, which are
And if
also
one is so inclined. Yeah, my books are on itch. They're also available. You could buy a copy on Amazon, but you really feel don't feel compelled to do that.
yes. You get. I imagine you get much better cuts on
Once I
itch.
find a yes, I do.
Well, perfect. Oh, did I? Am I
Mm.
okay? No, for a second, a
No.
page crashed, and sometimes when a page crashes, that means a lot of stuff is crashing. But we're
Oh.
good.
Including the show. Goodbye, everyone.
Yes, the show is and
Yeah.
of course, folks, Indiepocalypse.com is a great place to buy Indiepocalypse. Definitely the best place to buy physical versions of Indiepocalypse because I get a notification that people. That's a lot easier for me to find people buying physical versions there than it is on Itch. Itch does not have a good way of telling you if people are buying rewards.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, Indiepocalypse.com or pizzapranks.itch.io are perfect places to purchase Indiepocalypse. And if you purchase copies like issues 46 and 61, these nice people here occasionally get money. It's about every
Oh, it's been so helpful. It really
Yeah.
has.
Well, thank you. Glad to like those little like trickles, $5-6 that pop up every now and then. After that king's bounty of 60 or 80 or so up at the top.
Yeah.
Tally unfamiliar with the slow trickle of $5 to $6, but it's coming. Every 4 issues or so is enough for a payout. So get those physically or digitally. I have them both available. I have. Speaking of tapes, of course, indiepocalypse.com/tape is the best place to purchase those. There's also the Tape Market, which has a bunch of other people's games as well, including the Puzzle Cauldron, the Cultisti 6-game puzzle pack that just released as of this Wednesday as part of the monthly Tape Club. As my second kind of short story collection, so to speak, of games. Very cool. Very excited of I just think that commerce is cursed at being a very good way of spreading culture. Unfortunately, people buying stuff is like, oh, I'll pay attention to this now because it's for sale. Of course, if you want to submit your stuff, it's indiepocalypse.com/submit, and /Patreon is where you get a game where you can subscribe to it, including a $5 tier if you want to just get commissioned games every month. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got for it. Tallyman, well, thank you both for joining me here today. Glad to have you on the show, in the zine, hanging around and all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks so much for having.
With that, we are going to shut down the show. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.